everybody, and welcome to Spirit of Nature Art and part 2 of this lovely Stamperia folio project. This is where we got to last time. So today we're going to start looking at this side, what side is this? The right hand side section and the cover. So I am just wanting to fill in those little tiny spines, that's the word. I like to fill those in because it just kind of helps that flow of the paper all the way across, and it also helps to make those just a little bit stronger as well. So I always like to kind of take a little piece off the same kind of paper stock so it kind of flows. So as you can see, I don't measure, I go in and I just make a little mark. I put my piece of paper up against it and make marks on it, and that's how I do my measuring rather than trying to do rulers. So I'm just cutting things down to size here to fit that little spine, and then to start to create some pockets on that side flap. So I'm using Distress Oxide Vintage Photo on the edges of all of these. And here we go, just sticking down that little spine before I lose it. I always stick those down straight away because otherwise I can guarantee I'll lose it or one of the cats will walk off with it. So I'm just using high tack glue just to be able to get that into place. And now just putting this piece here, because this section here has a little kind of journal tab on it already. So I'm just putting that in place, and then I'm going to flip it without it moving, and then use my pencil just to draw around that bit so I can cut it out and get the right shape. So you just need to be pretty steady-handed with it to make sure it doesn't move when you flip. So there we go, bits like that. Now what I want to do is create, because I want this to have some pockets in it, so I'm just going to create some little thumb notches. So I'm just finding the central kind of part on those two sections, just roughly. And then getting my circle punch and just punching out little thumb notches, just so it's really obvious where those pockets are. And just inking all the way around the edge. And because these file folders are the reinforced ones, they have this kind of plastic coating around the edges, and it's just personal preference. I don't like that, so I've just grabbed some scraps here of tea dye paper just to put along that edge there and cover up that kind of shiny bit. You don't have to do that, but just that's how I like it. I don't like the shiny. So just putting those in position and sticking them down, and also edging them with the Distress ink as well. And then all I've got is that little extra bit there around the tab just to trim off. And a little bit of extra Distress Oxide, and we're ready to stick that down. And just adding a little bit of extra ink in those areas as well, just to darken that down. Now what I always do when I go and stick these down is I draw on the back where the glue goes, because otherwise I'd glue in the wrong place. So I want this to be two pockets. So I'm going to kind of put a thick kind of section of glue in the middle there, as you can see, so that separates the two pockets. So I always draw that on and scribble in it, so I know that's where I'm going to put the glue. And then I'm just doing a thin bead of glue around the other three edges so that we can stick this down and create that top and bottom pocket where the thumb notches are. Now I want to turn my attention to the front cover, just because that's kind of where I felt I needed to go. Again, I'm going to do this thing where I take this whole sheet of paper from the front all the way across to the back. So I'm going to basically wrap it all the way around these sections. So I'm just first of all marking the height, because that will be the same across the whole thing. So I just need to chop this up into the right sized widths so that I can fill all those little sections between where I have used the distress ink. At this point, I'm not 100% sure if I've got enough to do the two skinny spines, but actually it turns out that I have, which is great. So that will be the front cover, and then just putting this in place and marking to be able to cut the spine. And I do that all the way across, so I've got all my pieces. I never presume that the back is the same as the front, even though it should be. There might be just, you know, a slight millimetre or so difference. So I always do that just to make sure. So here we go. I've inked everything, just sticking it down. Again, I am just sticking down the spines at the moment. I don't want to stick down the cover, the front or the back, because I want to do a little bit more work on them first, but also I want to put my closure on too. But I'm sticking the spines down so I don't lose them. And I've decided, I quite like with these folios just to use a ribbon closure. So this is it called gross grain, I think, ribbon. It's really sturdy, it's got a nice bit of texture to it. And I really quite like using it for these journals. And I tend to cut it to a length of about 25 centimetres. That tends to work for me. Also means I can get four of them out of a metre, which is quite handy. So cutting those two, and I will stick those down first so that then the paper goes over the top of it so you can't see where it's been added. So I'm just finding the central point. Finding the centre point on things is pretty much the only time I use a ruler, because I'm not very good at eyeballing the centre. And just popping a little bit of tacky glue there, popping my little bit of ribbon on. I don't even need to measure the other side because I can just line it up with where the other ribbon is. Now, whilst that's drying, I want to prepare the front cover because I want Mr. Fox to be a tuck spot. So I'm just eyeing up this piece of card here because I want to line the back of it to reinforce the fox, because I'm going to cut him out. You'll kind of see in a minute how I do that. So I'm just looking at where this piece of card needs to go in order to sit behind Mr. Fox. I'm actually using my light. I hold it up to the light so I can see if it's in the right place and then mark it. Trying to find my pencil marks. I hope I'm not the only one that does that. I put a pencil mark on, then I can't find it. So now I know that is in the right place. I'm just going to draw around it so that when I stick it down, it goes back into the right place as well. Because now what I'm going to do, I've got my little craft knife here and I am cutting around the outline of the right-hand side of Mr. Fox so that I can use him as a tuck spot. So I'm going really gently with this. I'm going to do it in a couple of goes because I've got to go through the card as well. So rather than kind of pushing down really hard and trying to get through it in one go, I'm just doing it really gently and I'm going to go through it in maybe 2 or 3 goes. And now that that is there, I'm just going to use my distress ink and a little eyeshadow applicator just to get in and cover up those white edges, which are really quite obvious where I have used the kind of craft knife on them there. So I'm just covering all of that up. so that Mr. Fox can go on the front there. So that's covering up where the ribbon is attached, and you can see now where he will have his tuck spot. And all the way through this, it's been really annoying because these flaps keep flapping. So I've decided it's time to put the closure on. So I'm just putting some twine through them, just really simply tying them in a knot. I was thinking this would be a temporary one, but I actually quite like how this looks. There we go. So now the pockets aren't going to get on my nerves. So I'm going to do the other side of that flap now. So just measuring up, chopping it to size, and doing my same little flipping it over and drawing around it so that I can get that kind of tab shape. And this was one of the leftover cards from doing the little flippy flappy cards in the middle there. And I've decided actually I wanted to kind of almost mirror what's on the front page. So again, I'm going to line this card on a piece of the same cardstock, but this time I'm actually cutting him out completely, or just that right hand side again, so that I can create a pocket on that flap like that. So the card just means that he's extra sturdy so that when I'm putting tags in and out, actually he's not going to get ripped or damaged. So now he's in the right place. Again, just cutting around or drawing around that bit there so I can cut along the right line. So that he's now going to be exactly the right shape for me to stick onto that piece of paper to go on that flap. So I've edged everything with distress ink, and I've glued, or I'm about to glue, just the bottom and the side, so that it's really easy to kind of put little tags in and out when he's in position. Like that. There we go. So we can see we can fit things behind him. So I want to glue that in place now. So I've just tacky glued that whole thing and now putting that in place. Because I've got the tuck spot there, I don't want any extra little thumb notches or pockets, because everything that goes on that page will go behind the tuck spot that is Mr. Fox. Like that. So this is where we are on the inside now. So we've got Mr. Fox there, we've got these two little pockets here, we've got all of the pockets on these little cards here, and we have the pocket here. And we will have Mr. Fox stuck on there with another little tuck spot. So this is where we've got to. I will just show you making the cards in the other videos, but this is where we are at. So I shall look forward to seeing you in episode 3 very soon.